Hello, my darling ghouls and goblins. Welcome back to my channel. Today is a fun one for you. I am going to talk you through some of my favourite decks for the Samhain and Halloween season. As a professional tarot reader, I love doing readings at this time of year. It's just a beautiful experience to be able to harness the energies and zoom in on the themes for Samhain. I love it. I do a reading for myself, at least one, and I do plenty of readings for clients as well. So I have some tried and tested decks that I've used year after year, and I have newer ones that I've placed into my collection. Some of them are extremely themed around Samhain and Halloween, and some of them are just more kind of like, you know, seasonally adjacent. I enjoy using them, but I would use them other times aside from this time of year, but they just give you that gorgeous autumnal vibe, or they really tap you into some of the themes of this particular Sabbath. So I'm going to talk you through what I enjoy, and there will be cutaways as usual, so you can get up close and personal with some of the cards in each of the decks that I mention. Most of the decks are tarot. There are a couple of oracle as well. I think there are 3 oracle that I want to talk about too. So for you oracle readers, I've got you. Okay, there are some things in here for you to enjoy looking at as well. All right, my darlings, get comfortable, grab a beverage, and let's get into some of my favorite card imagery for this really, really potent time of year. Thank you for joining me, and let's get into it. I'm going to start off with a classic choice for this time of year. It is the Halloween Tarot by Kipling West. How many of you own this baby? It's absolutely precious. It taps heavily into the theme of Halloween in terms of like trick-or-treating. There's lots of trick-or-treating in this deck. There's lots of like conical witches' hats and green-haired witches and, you know, zombies and things like that. The 4 suits in the Halloween Tarot are renamed. So pumpkins are pentacles, bats are swords, ghosts are cups, and imps are wands. So if you struggle a little bit with renaming of the 4 suits in your brain box, you're going to want to get a little bit used to the Halloween Tarot before you start to use it for clients, that is for sure, or for queerance, if you will. But I just really love the imagery. I love the joyful shining stars in a lot of the cards and the black night sky. I love the fact that it takes from the Rider-Waite-Smith, but it kind of cheekily reinterprets things. You will see the cutaway to some of the cards here that shows you just how much of a nod this is to the Rider-Waite-Smith, but with all of these playful little touches and changes that make you grin and make you smile and just make you feel this really gorgeous Halloween vibe, you know. It is very much, like I said, that kind of all-American trick-or-treat energy for a lot of the cards. It does look like a novelty deck, and you know, it is fun to look at, but I promise you, you can get some serious readings out of it. I have done really beautiful deep dives using the Halloween Tarot for my clientele, and I'm keen on it. I love it. I just think it's, yeah, it's really beautiful. There's something so joyful about this one. The next deck is a newer one in my collection. I've only had this one just shy of a year. I got it for my birthday last year, and it is the Modern Goth Tarot illustrated by Natalie Foss. I'm completely obsessed, guys. I love this one, and it's been a joy for me to use it for some of my Samhain and Halloween readings for my clientele this year. It's deep vibes. This is a beautiful one. So let me show you some of the cutaways, okay? So the Modern Goth is exactly as you would imagine. It is a take on modern Goth culture and subcultures. And you can see that the characters in these cards are really alive. Like, I feel like I know a great deal of these characters. They just give me so many warm feelings. I want to get to know them. I want to path work right into some of these cards and get to know some of these figures. Now, it is only the major arcana and the court cards in the Modern Goth Tarot that are depicted with any figures or any scenes of any kind, okay? This is definitely a deck that has pips for the minors. In other words, you're just going to see, you know, 4 cups or 3 wands or whatever. So if you're not comfortable reading with a deck that has minor pips, then you're not going to want this one. But if you are comfortable with that, then you're going to love it. And even the minors are illustrated with like bats and cobwebs and just very, very beautiful seasonally appropriate things. It does have a kind of like haunting vibe in certain aspects, and it does play heavily into the Halloween imagery because, you know, Halloween is classically goth. There is a lot to look at here, a lot to work with. It does give me a joyful feeling. I really, really love this one. The next deck that I'm going to rave about is very on the nose, right? It's literally Seasons of the Witch, the Samhain Oracle. There is a collection of 8 of these for each of the 8 Sabbats. The Seasons of the Witch is actually a collection. You can get all of them. I only own the Samhain Oracle, and it's beautiful. It's by Juliet Diaz and Lorraine Anderson with illustrations by Giada Rose. Let me show you some of the cutaways to this incredible oracle Oracle deck. I am so glad I purchased it. It is one of the newer ones in my collection. And you might actually recognize this Oracle deck from the pick a card reading that I did recently in my Samhain vlog here on the channel. I very much enjoy the little captions that give you a sense of the energy and the meaning for each of the cards. And these illustrations, you know, they are just very seasonally appropriate. They do put you right in the mood. This is a very witchy deck. I would strongly recommend it for witches that want an Oracle vibe for their seasonal readings. I very much enjoyed experimenting with combining this Oracle deck with various different sort of seasonal tarot decks that I have that are appropriate for this particular Sabbath and the run up to it. It's just very atmospheric. There's something about the color palette that is used in the Seasons of the Witch Samhain Oracle that I really love. Definitely no regrets about this purchase. Yeah, it's just a really strong one, I think, for this time of year. The next one that I want to recommend, which is also very, very on the nose, very classic for this season, is the Macabre Tarot by Sam Rook. Look at it, guys. Look at it. And listen to what happens when you open the door. The creaky door is just too much. I just love it. I absolutely love it. I do wish there was something on the back, though, to make it a little bit more eventful when it opens. But I really, really love the box. I mean, come on, who wouldn't love this box? The Macabre Tarot is a really interesting one. Let me show you some... Oh! Oh, it's just so jolly. What can you say? I mean, it really appeals to the goth in me. Okay, let me show you some cutaways. So the Macabre Tarot is really, really good for your shadow work readings, my darlings. There is some darker imagery in here. There are some darker themes. I want to mention to you that there are some renamings of some of the major arcana cards, and every single court card group has been renamed to the terrors, the nightmares, the hauntings, and the massacres. The kings are renamed as the massacres in the Macabre Tarot. And there's also a renaming of the four suits. So cups are the same, but pentacles become crystals, wands become bones, and the swords become daggers. This is a really good deck for those who love that monochrome kind of vibe, and a really good deck for those who love something very imposing to look at for their Samhain and Halloween themed readings. So yeah, this is a really, really great deck. I very much recommend it. It's a newer one in my collection and I very much love it. It took me a while to get used to, but I'm there now. I'm on board and I am in love. I did not want to make this video without mentioning the incredible Tarot del Torro. I really, really love this tarot deck based on the work of Guillermo del Toro, the incredible director. And if you know anything about del Toro's work, you know that it is incredibly invested in that horror imagery. And there are things from this deck that are connected to some of his films, his works, his ideas. So this is a really powerful deck and I very much enjoy it for this time of year. Obviously, let me show you some cutaways. This is a small deck. It's kind of like a bit of a travel size, and there are some renamings of the four suits. Okay, so you've got goblets, you've got blades, wands remain the same, and then it's discs. Okay, so not too much of a renaming there, but I thought I should just mention this is a deck that does rely on pips, so really non-illustrated minors. Again, if you're uncomfortable with reading with that kind of deck, you're not going to love this one, but if you can do it, then it's worth it for the major arcana cards and the court cards, which are just very, very del Toro coded, and there's just so much to enjoy and look at, and you get very much into the horror movie vibe and you really become so inspired, I think, by this imagery. I love it. I love the wood cutting kind of essence that this deck has. I love the color palette. It's very moody for those candlelit readings that we so love to do at this beautiful time of year. So very seasonal. Can I just say, if we come away from the cutaways for a moment, I really love this edge. Look at this edge. Witness the fitness of this edge. Hello. It's not only red gilt, but it's also got this incredible patterning on it. So it's just really satisfying, like I said, for the atmos, for the ambience, darling. If you're into del Toro's work or you're just looking for something a little bit rough and ready, a little bit different with that incredible seasonal palette, then definitely recommend Tarot del Toro for that. I now get to rep one of my all-time favorite decks to use for my client readings at this time of year. It's the Zombie Tarot by Stacey Graham and Headcase Design. I am absolutely obsessed with this deck. I've had it for many, many years and I always return to it. I always pull it out when the Samhain vibes cometh, okay? So this is a wonderful, wonderful deck. It is fun, it is novel, it is a 1950s dystopian zombie invasion situation, okay? And it's got like the 50s fashion, 50s cars, right? A traditional 50s experience, but with zombies everywhere, wreaking havoc. It's kind of gory, but again, it's kind of funny as well. Let me show you some cutaways so you can see what I mean. It's just a very immersive deck that takes you into a world that's a little bit like you're in a video game, which is wonderful. The only renaming of the suits are for the pentacles. The pentacles are renamed hazards. And yeah, you can just see here that these zombies are hilarious and some of the scenes are so funny and ridiculous. Some of them look like movie posters. The characters feel like characters that you know. The zombies are characters that you can be affectionate towards, you know, and laugh at, but it also can be a little bit like, oh my gosh, there's one behind you, blow its head off. So it does have that kind of horror vibe, but it's just really funny. And the colors are sensational. This is a really sharp looking deck, very iconic. Like I said, it's got a bit of a movie poster / propaganda poster feel to it. And the whole deck has been really thought through. This theme is absolutely fully baked. There is nothing half baked about the Zombie Tarot. It takes you fully into the world. And you really feel when you come out like you have been somewhere else. You have traveled yonder into this dystopian zombie invasion situation, and you have just been in survival mode. So it's a very clever deck and I really appreciate it for that. I get very deep readings out of this because in the hands of the right reader, even the most funny, comedic and novelty of decks can make a massive difference to a querent's life. I have another Oracle deck recommendation for you guys that love the Oracle cards. This is Laura Sava's Dark Mirror Oracle cards. This is a really heady, very intense, very shadow work coded, very like dark horror romance coded kind of deck. You're either going to love this one or you're going to hate it. So it is well worth having a look at these cutaways if you think you might be in the market for anything like this. You will be able to see from the titles of some of these cards just how intense they can be. And as you're looking at the cutaways, I will just read you a few. You've got Parasite, Colorless Angel, Black Flower Fragrance, Anger in Chains, Queen of My World, Artificial Heart, and I don't know what you're seeing in the cutaways, but I'm sure you can see many more of these fabulously intense titles for these cards. And the art is just very sort of dreamy, very trippy. It's a little bit scary. There's definitely some horror coded stuff in there. There's some fabulous outfits in here. The costumes in this deck are wonderful. The guidebook for this particular deck is absolutely nutty. I don't know how much you're going to feel that you can get out of it. The wording is, I don't know if the wording was that intense in the original because I don't think this was originally published in English. I don't know. Maybe it was, but like, it's very, very trippy, the wording in the accompanying guidebook. I do enjoy some trippy wording, but honestly, when I'm working with Dark Mirror, I just go with my own intuition and I feel deeply into what's coming through for me because the guidebook wasn't really giving me that much. It's just kind of like, I don't know, it's sort of got a bit of a garbled poetry vibe to it a little bit. So I think the book might have been written by Riccardo Minetti. Excellent with words, but I couldn't really connect the wording that much to the meanings of the cards. But honestly, it doesn't matter. If you're in the market for something really intense, if you want something to do your shadow work with, or even if you want something to do really intense magic with, like maybe banishing or release work or anything like that, processing anger, rituals around finding your true self, you cannot go wrong with Dark Mirror. Like I said, I think people are either going to love or hate this one. I always pull it out at this time of year, always without fail. No matter how far to the back of my tarot cupboards it is, it comes out for Samhain and Halloween, 100%. I want to mention another classic that's been in my collection for many, many moons. And if you've been a tarot querent of mine at around this time of year, then you might have had a reading with me using this one, the Marigold Tarot by Amrit Bra. I've had it for so long that the front of it is just kind of like faded away. I don't think the box for the Kickstarter edition was made super, super well. I don't know if anybody else had the same problem, but I kind of like it because it looks like a deck that I stole from an old pirate ship. rip because it just kind of looks a little bit like it's seen some times, and it certainly has. There is definitely a really skeletal theme in this deck. Let me show you some cutaways. Very beautiful, very delicate artwork, and the cards are just purely black, white and gold, and you have this stunning border around the cards. I know some of you don't like borders to be too over the top or too sort of distracting visually, but I think you could agree that with the Marigold Tarot, it really works. The gold is really popping out of these cards, guys. And I think the contrast of the gold and the white gives such a delicacy and a beauty to the skeletal imagery, and also a lot of the foliage and the kind of fruit imagery that you can see here with this deck too. Just a little mention that the suit of pentacles is renamed to the suit of rings. So I just thought I would mention that. And you will also notice that some of the skeletons are wearing traditional Indian dress. Amrit Bra really wanted to nod to her own culture, and I think that's really beautiful, and it's just stunning to see sort of the skeletons in the saris and everything. The imagery is dark. There are some nooses in some of the images, so if that's not something that you're comfortable with, then you will need to give that a think. But this is one that always comes out for me at this time of year. I mean, it's just so beautiful, guys. Like, it shines in the light. You can see there that light bouncing around on the cards. So yeah, I just really love to see it. Every single season it comes out, and it just really makes a meal of it for me with a lot of my client readings. So it's a very beautiful one. It's very fucking Instagram ready, right? There's nothing about this deck that isn't gorgeous. So yeah, I definitely would make mention of this one as a great seasonal choice. I would like to mention Lisa Hunt's deck, Ghosts and Spirits Tarot. This is a really, really powerful one because it takes a lot of different ideas from different folklore stories, different myths, different sort of ghost stories and stories about hauntings and weird goings on all over the world. The guidebook, the little handy dandy little white book, comes with a lot of information about what the various different cards mean and what cultures they're referencing from, etc. So you can go into a deep dive and do lots of research, and that's why I always keep this little white book with the deck, even though usually I don't do that. I have all of my little white books sort of stowed away with an elastic band around them for each of my decks, should I choose to go on and sell them in the future. But with Ghosts and Spirits Tarot, I have the little white book right here so that I can remind myself if I forget of some of the stories that are referenced. Let me show you a cutaway of some of the imagery from this deck. It is incredibly detailed, my darlings, and incredibly beautiful colour is used. And you can see that you've got here clearly some very intense different forms of folklore, fairy tale and mythology going on in these various different cards. So it is a learning experience working with Ghosts and Spirits Tarot. It's not something that you can just pick up really and use off the top of the dome, because you're going to be looking through these cards thinking, what is this referencing? This is clearly from some kind of story, from some kind of fairy tale. Not all of the cards reference folklore and fairy tale and myth, but a lot of them do. So you are going to want to go through and give the cards a study, and then you enrich yourself with all of these different amazing stories, ghost stories, etc., stories about mythical beings, stories about different locations, and the scary stuff that goes on there. You really sort of get to feel like you've been down a rabbit hole and you have learned and experienced so much. You can see there is a haunting quality in these cards. It's a reasonably cohesive looking deck, although the color palette is a little bit all over the place. Some cards are incredibly, intentionally washed out and pale and ghostly, and others are very intense with a lot of very vivid color. So your eye does get drawn to some cards over others. This is a really good deck in the collection for anybody that loves ghost stories, loves folklore and fairy tale of the more haunting and scary variety, loves to understand more about different cultures and traditions, and usually gives themselves a reading at the time of Samhain. For me personally, there is no video about Samhain and Halloween decks that would be complete without mentioning the Bohemian Gothic Tarot by Karen Mahoney and Alex Yukolov. I love this deck. You can see that this box is absolutely battered and beaten. I use this deck every single year. I don't just use it at Samhain and Halloween, but that will be the main time that it comes out. This is the Bubba Studios deck, and I don't know if you actually can get it anymore. I don't think it's in print. You would have to go to the second-hand market. Really powerful. You've got your demons, your phantoms, your vampires, your werewolves, the ghosts of sickly Victorian children, large rambling Victorian mansions. You've got all the moody blues and dark purples and dense blacks that you would love to see in a deck like this. So you can see from the cutaways, this is high drama, guys. This is a very movie-like, very immersive deck. It will remind you of various like moody period pieces that you've seen and horror movies and stuff from this kind of period. There is some fabulous, incredible costumes going on for both the men and the women in this deck. And there are gargoyles and there's incredible architecture, and you actually really feel like you've gone to another place. It's quite a transportative collection of images for the Bohemian Gothic, and I love it. The Gothic, like dramatic Victorian ghost inside me just absolutely loves this deck with every fibre of my Samhain-soaked being. I love Patrick Valenza's Deviant Moon Tarot for Samhain and Halloween readings. This is another one that if you've been a client of mine over time, I may well have used Deviant Moon for you. I know I used it for 3 of you just yesterday. So it is one that I pull out a lot. This is the borderless edition that I have here in my hands. This is a really interesting deck. This one is stylized characters and moonlit dreamscapes that draw you into the luminescent world of Deviant Moon. It's very evocative, this artwork. Now, I'll show you some cutaways, right? So what Patrick Valenza has created here is a really cohesive world with really interesting stylized figures that are wearing masks, and they have a specific sort of shape that they take on. Their limbs are in a specific way. And you can see that they are doing all kinds of like haunting or dystopian or scary looking things. But the interesting thing about this deck is that some people that work with it say that it's cute and it's comedic and it gives them a warm, fluffy feeling. Other people do not like it and do not want anybody to work with it for them. And they do not want to work with it either because they find it freaky. They find it a bit scary. They find it unpleasant. They find it uncomfortable or cold. This is a very divisive deck, Deviant Moon. I have noticed that over the years. Let me know down in the comments, anyone who loves or loathes Deviant Moon, have you also noticed that it is quite divisive? Because I find that really interesting about it. But you can see that there is a lot of difficult imagery here. Like some of these figures are going through a really difficult time. Some of them are fighting, some of them are being harmed or trapped, or they're weeping uncontrollably. And then you've got others that just look kind of, you know, funny and cute, and they're going about their business and they're riding on animals, or they're kind of like dancing around in crazy costumes. So it is a very immersive world. As I said, it's very, very stylized, and I really love it, and I think it's a really good choice for Halloween and Samhain. It's got just enough little monsters and grimaces and silly sticking out tongues and things going on to make it a good themed deck, I think, for this time of year. Darlings, I just want to make 3 honorary mentions before I round out this video. They are not decks that are strictly based around like horror or Samhain or Halloween or anything like that, but they are decks that I feel are very adjacent to this particular Sabbath. So the first one that I want to mention is the Wild Unknown Tarot. I don't need to stick on this too long because this is the deck that launched 1 million readers. It was a hugely popular deck when it came out years ago, and I was one of those people that absolutely was bought and sold on this deck. You can see from the cutaway that I'm showing you that there is just enough to really keep you in that autumnal and Samhain vibe, which is really beautiful to see. You've got just enough bones, bats and eyeballs, etc. I think the colour palette really lends itself to this particular Sabbath, and I think there's just an intensity that comes through with a lot of these cards that makes it a great choice for a Samhain reading. I also wanted to mention Light Visions Tarot. This is a really autumnal, kind of moody, atmospheric deck that I think is really good for Samhain themed readings. It has a burgundy and kind of like sepia and tea stained looking vibe to it, and I almost can feel the temperature change when I go through these cards, and I just kind of feel like I'm really being put into a world of like windy, leaf-blown forests, mysterious bodies of water with things appearing, like figures appearing from the water. You've got some dramatic cliff edges. You've got kind of just this, I don't know, it's just a vibe that you get. You know what I mean? When you know that you can reach for a certain deck and it will really complement Samhain, and it will complement any themes that are coming up in your Samhain readings. It's just got a moody, sort of like horror folktale vibe to it. The final honorary mention I wanted to go ahead ahead and put in here is the Vintage Wisdom Oracle by my dearly departed and wonderful friend Victoria Mosley. It gives me great pleasure to be able to bring this deck out, honestly, all times of year, but because of its very sort of Victorian and vintage inspired imagery and the use that it makes of like old vintage photographs and postcards, I really feel like it just gives me something that is really, really necessary and really sort of like moody and atmospheric for this time of year. You can see from the cutaways that the deck is very charming, and it really like sort of pulls into definitely some sort of Waterhouse painting vibes, and also, like I said, some old postcards. It's got that Victorian kitsch vibe. It's got like old silent film sort of movie star vibe to it. You've got some great costumes in there. You've got a little bit of a haunting Victorian kind of feel. It's oldie worldy, you know, there's just something about it that I think does the job for me for, if not a Samhain read, then certainly for some of my more autumnal reads. Darlings, I've absolutely loved sharing with you some of my favourite Samhain and Halloween tarot and oracle decks. I would love to know down below if I have mentioned any that are actually in your collection. Are there any that you're thinking of picking up on my recommendation? Are there any that I missed out that you're very surprised that I didn't put in there, or that I maybe don't own? I'm always in the market for having a look at what else might take my fancy for next year or the years after that, if I'm lucky enough to still be alive and doing readings on this crazy little planet. From Samhain to Samhain, I love doing readings more and more at this time of year. You can still take a look at my online store, have a look at the Samhain and Halloween options. I still have some times available in my schedule for October and then going on into November. So whenever you've got time, I've got time. Come and check out the store and get a reading from me, an award-winning professional card slinger of many, many moons. Much love, my darlings. Until next time, thank you for watching and blessed be. Mwah.